The demon was saying, "No, don't get close to me," it screams while summoning its serrated handblade, sending a powerful attack towards Dylan's direction. But from out of the smoke, a green shield protects Dylan from the demon's attack. He tells the demon that it was truly a low life and brainless, without any ounce of etiquette. But the demon doesn't stop with its attacks as it slams a heavy fist onto Dylan's shield. But it does nothing at all, only leaving cracks onto the demon's own hand. In an instant, a halo ring appears around Dylan's shield, causing the demon to fall backwards as its left arm explodes. With a creepy look on his face, Dylan tells the demon that it has no right to fight back. With its arm missing, the demon was confused about how a mere green core power has such invasiveness. Usually, a green core represents the idea of regeneration. Many of the medic warriors are green core warriors. Even with its arm gone, the demon was still confident that it could kill Dylan with just one arm. But before it could attack again, Dylan sends out multiple green ropes to catch it, holding its body and arm in place. He tells the demon that although he was a green core warrior, he was actually a double septuple finned green core warrior from the 6 talents. The green ropes that entangled with the demon started to glow, which made the demon realize something: it was entering its body. With a twist of his hand, Dylan had forced the demon to swallow its own serrated blade arm deep inside its throat. Damn boy, talk about a blowjob. Looking at the demon, Dylan tells it that it talks too much, so he was going to start with its mouth first. Within seconds, the entire demon's body started to bloat up, becoming like a balloon before exploding into a giant green smoke blast that covered the entire arena. Using Aang's T-pose, Dylan announces to the crowd that with this demon's blood, let us begin the prologue of the demon hunting competition. And so, the demon hunting competition officially begins. As the green smoke dust settles, the crowd continues to cheer the words 6 talents, as Dylan basks in the glory of the city. Aang was watching him closely the entire time. He could see Dylan's strength. Based on the way that he utilized his strength, the double core probably gives him a battle strength that's far above twice the amount of strength of just a single core. And they even complement each other to trigger a greater amount of power. Aang felt that the new 6 talents weren't as simple as they seem, which made him wonder what the new king is like. However, the way they treated Lena still pisses him off. As Dylan bows his head to the crowd, the announcer announces to them that the great 6 talent would retreat from the battlefield and that their vanguard members would return to the battlefield. As Dylan exited the battlefield, the vanguard members continued to bow their heads as he walked by, showing that Lord Dylan was truly deeply respected by all. Meanwhile, a certain dude simply walks by the so-called Lord with his hands in his pockets, causing Dylan to stop and telling him to wait. Aang turns around, almost activating his demonic mode as his eyes were bright red. Diane asks him about why he seems to hold bloodlust towards him. Aang thought of the question silently for a while before explaining to Dylan that he was mistaken. He further explains that he was using bloodlust to maintain his hostility before all his battles in order to keep himself on his toes. After all, being a vanguard member wasn't that easy. Dylan, too, took a moment to absorb Aang's explanation before letting out a laugh, calling Aang interesting and informing him that he was going to keep an eye on him. "I hope you won't disappoint me," were Dylan's last words to Aang as he left the battlefield. Those words angered our boy as he thought about how Dylan's parents weren't even born yet when he was out there playing and yanking out demon guts. And so, the vanguard members were gathered together once again. The announcer tells them to prepare themselves and to listen to the rules carefully. They explain that being a vanguard means to take the initiative. Before each team makes their moves, they are the eyes of each team scouting in this forest. So their task is to assess according to their team's total strength, and to find the best path for them to fight their battles. They must also finish hunting down the demons before the time is up and earn points. In this year's competition, there aren't just finless demons, there are also single-finned demons and double-finned demons, and even some triple-finned demons. They will all be released randomly into the City Forest Competition Arena. The City Forest Competition Arena covers a wide amount of space. Each team's vanguard members need to scout carefully for the best path. While scouting, please keep in mind your own safety. This isn't a joke. The announcement reminds them that their safety is paramount, and since they were all on their own, it was best not to attract the attention of the demons. After hearing the explanation of the event from the announcer, every vanguard member around Aang started to become nervous. After all, the survival rate of the vanguard members was around 36%. Hearing their worries, Aang looks at them and could see that these double-finned core warriors simply have a double-finned core, but they probably didn't even reach the strength that a double-finned core warrior should have. In terms of synchronization rates, each warrior's aura is incredibly important as well. Perhaps it's because they were far too young, and don't have the responsibility of a leader upon their shoulders, which was why they seem so immature to Aang. Unlike Jin and the other single-core warriors back home, who have such sharpened auras and presence. Since they came from a city that doesn't have much resources or help, they manage to refine their techniques and enlighten themselves with each battle to protect the city that they go through. And yet, over here in the S-rank city, there were even some warriors that have already begun to give in to their fears, like this young female warrior. But then the announcer calls out for one last thing, telling everyone that there was always a special segment in each year's competition. And that is the presence of a quadruple-finned demon. That's right, within the competition arena, there's a quadruple-finned demon. This demon has been trapped in a container, so if their team's overall strength is great enough, then they could consider setting it as one of their targets. As long as they hunt down the quadruple-finned demon, the competition will immediately end, and that team that hunts the demon down will win. Aang was happy to hear this as he was right, they kept his practice until today. While the other Vanguard members were worried about the presence of the quadrupled-finned demon as they knew that none of the teams would take that risk. And so, the announcer proclaims the start of the competition. The moment he does, every Vanguard member vanishes from their spot in an instant, leaving Aang to stand alone. Aang takes a massive step, destroying the ground beneath his feet. As he charges into the forest by himself, he thought of how perfect everything is, as the quadruple-finned demon was his end goal after all. After running into the forest for quite a while, Aang comes to a stop. Looking around, he could see that everyone had separated from each other and that most of the Vanguard members were still following the tracks of the other members. It looks like the other Vanguard members have no intention of finding that quadruple-finned demon like Aang was. But even if they know that hunting a quadruple-finned demon means that they would win, these young warriors were still afraid of dying. As the other warriors and Aang were roaming through the forest, multiple screens appeared in a room, showing where and what the warriors were currently doing. Dylan was paying close attention to all the participants to the point that he asked his assistant to find all of their information. Looking at her tablet with a sweat drop on her face, the assistant wanted to know if he had a particular Vanguard warrior that he was interested in. While looking at a screen with Aang on it, he describes to her that he wanted the warrior with a lock of white hair, the one that was casually taking his time and strolling around in the forest. With a quick few taps on the tablet, the assistant had found Aang's information. She reports to Dylan that Aang was a warrior from Pictia City and was a triple-finned core warrior. Hearing that Aang was a triple-finned warrior, Dylan's curiosity was increased. Knowing that very few triple-finned core warriors were willing to join this competition, since it doesn't benefit them much, it requires a lot of work. But he could also see that Aang was at a higher level when compared to the other competitors. This made Dylan wonder if this was the reason why Aang was so arrogant. But to this point, Dylan didn't know what Aang's name was, so he asked his assistant. As she read Aang's information, she started to stutter while behaving all nervously. She finally reveals to Dylan that the arrogant warrior's name was Aang. Upon hearing that name, Dylan immediately smashes the corner of his seat in rage. His powerful aura started to spread all around him as he looked at his assistant with murderous eyes, telling her to repeat what she just said. His assistant immediately shows Aang's information on the tablet to her, reporting that she was only reading according to the information report. Looking at the tablet, Dylan could really see Aang's name as it is written. He could only comment out loud that Aang's name was truly a name deserving of death. We now turn to the crowd who were watching the competition. Their cheers and support could be heard loudly in the arena. They could also spot that the Vanguards have found the demons in the forest. The competition broadcaster announces that the Vanguards have found the demons, and are using their own unique methods to record down the location. As they were now in the area where the finless demons were. After noting down the spot on their maps, the Vanguards have all moved on to the next location. While the other Vanguards were moving quickly through the forest, Aang was still taking his sweet time. He could see that the other Vanguards were recording down the location and plotting the best route for their team, which was the task that a Vanguard needed to complete. Seeing them fighting to rush through the forest made Aang recall some of his sweet past memories. Meanwhile, his own team from Pictia City were watching him closely. They were a bit annoyed by the fact that Aang was still chilling while the other Vanguards were on the move, making them wonder if he was going to be reliable or not. They soon turned to Instructor Paris to have a look at what Aang was doing right now. But she already saw what he was doing as she gazed out the window. A past memory is recalled where Aang spoke to her. He confidently tells Paris to believe in him, as he won't be taking the same path as the other Vanguard members, but he promises her that Pictia City will win. Paris recalled how confident Aang was to be sure of winning. She could see the look in his eyes then, which was full of confidence, which made it seem like he wasn't making a joke. She also remembered the power that Aang had showcased at the practice battlefield. But her face was starting to get pissed off after recalling how much more daring Aang was becoming since he always called her by her name, but in the end, Paris was smiling because she found Aang even more interesting after his actions. The vanguards were still moving fast throughout the forest. One of them was being chased by 3 single-finned demons, warning his team to stay away from this spot or else their chances of them getting points will be lowered. The other vanguards discovered a double red-finned demon in other spots of the forest. The remaining others run for their lives after discovering a triple-finned demon nearby. One of the vanguards who was running away passes by Aang, warning the main character that there was a triple-finned demon over there, and to not go there unless he wanted to die. But our boy ain't no bitch. He calmly marches forward to the area that everyone was running away from, as it happens to be leading to the path that he needed to take. As Aang stood his ground, various Vanguard members in front of him who tried to run away were instead stabbed with massive spikes made of wood. A triple-finned demon who has the wood element and a blue core emerges from the darkness of the forest with a low growl, holding onto the mouth of a Vanguard member. The crowd were shocked to see a triple-finned demon emerging, so they shouted at the Vanguard members to run away. This demon was pissed off at the humans for trapping it inside the forest for so long. He unleashes even more of the wood element attack towards Aang, shouting out loud that all humans must die. Aang easily dodges the wood attack with ease, knowing that the demons inside here were all more brutal and cruel than the ones outside, as they had been trapped for so long in here. Thinking that Aang was running away, the triple-finned demon lunges right at him, warning Aang to not run. As he landed onto a tree, Aang was annoyed about how insanely inconveniently it was for him to be watched by so many people. So he needed to finish this fight as quickly as possible. It's demon time as Aang lunges straight towards the triple-finned demon this time. As the demon's sharp claws were just inches away from Aang's eyes, he instantly bends down and dodges the demon's grab attack in just 0.25 seconds. As he slides beneath the demon, he spots its core's location in 0.5 seconds. At 0.75 seconds, Aang lets out a massive stomp onto the ground right beneath the demon. Knowing that the quadruple-finned demon was still waiting for him, Aang didn't have the time to play with this demon. In a total of 1 second, Aang had dodged the triple-finned demon's attack, slid it underneath it, found its core location, and stabbed right through it with his massive greatsword. As the greatsword enters the triple-finned demon's body, it unleashes rings of light all around them. The crowd were left stunned with their mouths wide opened. They all couldn't believe that a single Vanguard member was enough to kill a triple-finned demon in an instant. Using the gold element broadsword, Aang had coated his weapon with the gold element, which increases a weapon's sharpness and damage, resulting in Aang getting a triple-finned demon's blue core, as it stuck to the tip of his blade. Just the tip. Dylan was paying close attention as well, as he sensed that there was a fluctuation of the gold element. Aang was glad to have received a blue core from a triple-finned demon. But he needed to run now, as the quadruple-finned demon wasn't that far away from him. If his plan doesn't meet any changes, in order to let those with prestigious statues witness an exciting tournament and have a great time, then Aang should find the quadruple-finned demon placed at the highest peak that's nearest to the audience. As Dylan could spot Aang moving fast through the forest this closely, he figured out that Aang's target was the quadruple-finned demon that was currently sealed in a metal box, with its deadly red aura still coming out from it.
Thanks for watching the latest part from the voice of Manhwa. Subscribe for more content and don't forget to comment below what you want to see in the future. Like and share for more.